The original sin of this country is that we invaders shot and murdered our way across the land, killing every Native American we could and making treaties with the rest. This country was founded on genocide before the word genocide was invented. When we finally stopped actively killing Native Americans for the crime of living here before us, we then proceeded to violate every treaty we made with the tribes, every single treaty. We piled crime on top of crime on top of crime against the people whose offense against us was simply that they lived where we wanted to live. That we still have Native Americans left in this country to be arrested for trespassing on their own land is testament not to the mercy of the genocidal invaders who seized and occupied their land, but to the stunning strength and the 500 years of endurance and the undying dignity of the people who were here long before us, the people who have always known what is truly sacred in this world.
As a child, the Native American people had my interest. We called them Indians, and we didn't know that name had negative connotations to it. My younger brother and I played cowboy and Indian, inspired by the books of Winnetou and Old Shatterhand. In our perception, the cavalry were the good guys and the Indians the bad. So we were told. Later in my life, I understood the real story was one of suppression and abuse of the First Nation by the US government. But that was in the past. Growing up in Europe, these Hollywood images of the First Nations dominated my mind when I thought of them. I was sure they were doing just fine. The suppression was something from a long time ago. The US government had given them these beautiful reservations to live in, and they were taken care of. In my imagination, they were free, living as American citizens by choice. Little did I know. On television, I saw President Obama even visiting the Standing Rock Sioux tribe.
I'm going to practice. I'm going to be even better next time.
It was clear to me, Obama was taking care of the First Nations. He was their friend. He even cited the words of Sitting Bull, one of their great leaders from the past.
He said, let's put our minds together to see what we can build for our children. So let's put our minds together.
They're just spraying over there with cold water, freezing cold water, and keep on gassing people, keep on macing people. This is not okay. We're here to be peaceful. We're not here for violence, and they're responding with violence and cruelty. We're just here to defend the water.
Today we're looking at the ongoing standoff at Standing Rock in North Dakota, where thousands of Native American water defenders and their non-Native allies are resisting the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Well, in recent months, the repression against the water protectors and journalists covering the movement has continued to intensify. The state of North Dakota has approved $10 million to police the ongoing protest. And Morton County Sheriff Kyle Kirkmeyer has called in hundreds of deputies from neighboring states. North Dakota Governor Jack Dalrymple has also activated the National Guard. Riot police with military-grade equipment have attacked the Native American protectors with pepper spray, tear gas, beanbag rounds, rubber bullets, and sound cannons.
Seeing these images, I could not believe my eyes. I saw peaceful people who stood up for their rights being beaten down with heavy force. The US government was suppressing the First Nations, not taking care of them. 500 years of suppression since first contact was still going on in the self-proclaimed most democratic nation in the world. Almost none of the large media channels reported about the standoff between the Great Sioux Nation and the US. On the surface, a fight about an oil pipeline that was planned through their land. But in reality, a new chapter in the battle that has lasted for centuries. I decided to do something about it and take up my part in this movement to stop the ongoing abuse of Native Americans by the US. Together with my friend and cameraman Lex, we booked a flight to North Dakota to see for ourselves what the critical situation was at Standing Rock. How could it be possible these peaceful, spiritual people were treated this way after centuries of terror? And the US government didn't learn anything from the past. Lex and I undertook this journey in order to show the world the truth behind Standing Rock. The truth of suppression and genocide by the most democratic country in the world. Our objective was to reach the main encampment of the Great Sioux Nation, Oceti-Sakowin. Driving there from the airport, we stumbled upon a roadblock, put there by the Morton County Police. It was a part of their siege of the Oceti-Sakowin camp. Together with two smaller camps, Rosebud and Sacred Stone Camp, this was the largest prayer camp in the world. Only a week before our arrival, over 12,000 people had gathered there to celebrate a victory. The pipeline was delayed under the Obama administration. The easement needed to build was withdrawn, awaiting an environmental impact study on the effects of the pipeline by the Army Corps of Engineers, who were responsible for the land. Most of the people had left when we came, and about 2,000 water protectors remained on the ground in order to protect their land, enduring temperatures below -25°C. Oceti-Sakowin was the heart of a global indigenous movement, the beating heart of the indigenous revolution. At last we arrived at this amazing place where over 300 tribes had gathered, together with activists, veterans, and other concerned citizens. It was time to talk to the people on the ground and find out the true story of Standing Rock.
Hi there, I'm here at Standing Rock, Oceti-Sakowin camp. It's really cold, it's -24°, I think. And we have permission to film here and to show you the camp and how well it's organized. I'm here on Flag Road, the entranceway, and it's a very well organized place. And this is Lex, the cameraman. We're making a documentary in order to show the world and to show the banks what's really going on here.
In preparation of this mission, I was introduced to Linda Black Elk, an ethnobotanist and advisor for the Medic and Healer Council. My sources told me she had an important role in the movement at the camp.
My name is Linda Black Elk, and I live on the Standing Rock Reservation. I've lived here for about half my life. I'm actually a member of the Catawba Nation, but I've lived here for a long time, and my children are members of the Standing Rock Nation. I originally got started and interested in the camps at Standing Rock and became a supporter here because I'm an ethnobotanist. And that means that I study and teach the ways that people use plants for food and medicine and things like that. And one of the things that really broke my heart about the Dakota Access Pipeline is that it was crossing right through an incredibly sacred area where I have personally gathered food and medicine for my family. And so I decided to stand up with the people to fight for the water, to fight for treaty rights, to fight for the plants that no one was thinking about. So we're on the Standing Rock Reservation, and about 70 miles north of us, the Dakota Access Pipeline wants to cross the Missouri River at a very sacred place near the community of Cannonball.
it will drill, they will drill under the Missouri River, our sacred river that once provided everything for the Lakota people.
Another water protector who was able to explain the situation was Landy Keepsigle, a proud member of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe. This tribe is one of the tribes in the Great Sioux Nation, the tribe closest to the building site and therefore the most directly threatened by the pipeline construction. When I met her at the Prairie Knights Casino Hotel where Lex and I were staying, she was one of the operational persons of the Oceti-Sakowin camp.
My name is Landy Keepsigle. I'm the director of Lastrell Indians. This is the largest clean aquifer in the United States. Why would we take a chance? Why would we take a chance at polluting that system? That puts millions of people at risk.
And from April 1st through the cool spring, through the burning hot summer, and now through the freezing cold winter, we have stood in prayer to stop the Dakota Access Pipeline because we know that the Missouri River is under threat from this pipeline. The potential, the leak that a leak would have from the pipeline is just massive. 18 million people get their water from this part of the Missouri River, including us. And that's why we're standing up to fight.
You know, corporations are not people. They're these larger entities that stand for false representations of power, like money. Money isn't a real power. And that's the only thing that feeds them. And if they're fed by something that isn't real, then they have no heart. And so if we defund them, we take away their fire. And so that's why bank exits are so important.
One of the first things I discovered while preparing for this journey to Standing Rock was behind the Dakota Access Pipeline were a couple of large corporations, Sunoco Logistics and Energy Transfer Partners. The most important one was Energy Transfer Partners from Texas. These corporations were funded by 17 of the largest banks in the world: Barclays, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, Royal Bank of Canada, Morgan Stanley, BNP Paribas, DNB Capital, and ING Bank. Digging into them, these banks all seem to be interrelated. Many of them were each other's stakeholders. A very powerful syndicate of banks that made this traumatic experience for the Native Americans possible.
This pipeline is owned by people out of Texas. That's where the power players come from. The integrity of the pipeline is monitored out of a company from Oklahoma. The oil that comes out of North Dakota is shit crude. That's why we can't refine it here. That's why it has to be transported to Illinois. When it gets to Illinois, it is then contracted to China. It's pre-contracted. So that does nothing for the United States' dependence on fossil fuel, let alone the economy in North Dakota. Yeah, maybe there's a few temporary jobs created for construction in North Dakota, but other than that, there's no economic sustainability or diversity related to this pipeline whatsoever.
Once he takes over January 20th, what are the prospects?
Oh, it's 100%.
100% that
the easement gets granted and the pipeline gets built.
The president-elect has minor holdings in Warren's company, and Warren donated $103,000 to Trump's campaign.
It doesn't help the United States if it leaks, right? It doesn't help the people who live downstream.
I'm not going to win that argument with you because pipelines do leak. It's rare. I think the chances of this pipeline leaking is extremely remote.
Extremely remote. Energy Transfer Partners CEO Kelsey Warren must have been aware of the thousands of oil and gas leaks in the US between 1986 and 2016. Over 500 people were killed in these accidents and environmental damage was undescribable. Pipelines do leak, and they leak often.
All the protesters are going to go away once you're done?
Absolutely. What is there to protest?
They are determined to stop your project.
They will not stop our project. That's naive. They're not stopping our project.
So it's clear, no economic benefit to the region. The oil goes to China and is not even meant for the US. The construction only creates temporary jobs. So why is this project so important? Could it be because Energy Transfer Partners CEO Kelsey Warren donated into Trump's election funds? Could it be because Trump himself had invested in the Dakota Access Pipeline?
This is with respect to the construction of the Dakota Access Pipeline. Dakota Access Pipeline. Again, subject to terms and conditions to be negotiated by us.
And Warren's words became reality when Donald Trump granted him the easement to continue construction of the pipeline in his first 2 weeks after being inaugurated.
Okay.
Just weeks before Lex and I were filming at Standing Rock in December 2016, the Belle Forge pipeline, only 150 miles, so that's a 3-hour drive from Ochedi-Sakowee Camp, leaked an estimated 4,200 barrels of crude oil into the environment, causing a 7 miles environmental disaster in a creek feeding the Little Missouri River. Yes, pipelines do leak, and they do poison the water, the environment, wildlife, and human well-being. And the only reason to run potentially damaging projects, such as the Dakota Access Pipeline, is the profit a small group of people makes from it. One of the first people I spoke to was Danielle Gennady, a social permaculture activist from Seattle. She was based at Rosebud Camp at the other side of the river from Ochedi-Sakowee, and she was there when the first violence started. I asked her what she thought to be the moment people from all over the world started to sympathize with the struggle of the Great Sioux Nation and their helpers.
The first thing plants the seed, right? The march of the women and children on that front line when the security company brought those dogs in. I feel like that was that first one that just like reached in and grabbed people's hearts and said, wait a minute, this isn't right. Then when the folks here responded and claimed their right to that land and were oppressed on the 27th, that was the second one that fed it and brought it together into, there was a repetition. There was like, wait, it's happening again. That wasn't it. Then November 20th, when the night on the bridge, when the folks from this camp wanted to clear that road and restore their right to travel, and were attacked with water cannons and we witnessed these canisters being fired and setting fires. And we witnessed our folks from the camps rushing over and putting out those fires. And then we read newspaper accounts accusing this camp of lighting fires, and that's what they were using the water cannon for.
We are at the center of the earth. This is where it all happened. This is where it all started. And this is where this sacred fire right here, this movement, this is the front line of the new consciousness that is rising. And I'm really privileged and thankful to be here.
Tammy Pangilinan is a water protector of the First Hour. Her partner Cece and she lived in a yurt at Rosebud Camp. They were part of a group around grandmother Unchi Rachel Fuguera, who I spoke to on the phone in preparation of the filming. Grandmother Rachel was out of camp when I arrived, but luckily Tammy was willing to share her wisdom.
My relatives, my name is the Thunder Beans, they see her woman, and I just wanted to start off with, thanking you all for being here and say Wupila Tonka, a big thank you. They say it's $1 billion company, but I look at it as I'm taking a stand against another human being that doesn't have a conscience, that doesn't understand prayer, that doesn't understand that we are one with the earth.
They've made this about natives versus white people. They've made this about water protectors versus police officers, but that's not what it is. It's people that truly understand sovereignty. It's people who truly understand civil rights and civil liberties need to be protected. It's people who truly believe that our planet is our mother.
It's kind of sad, but it's the way it is right now, that the sensational elements of this. It's not the prayer, although we were in prayer and it helps. It's not the action, though we've built these beautiful infrastructures, self-organizing, self-governing. Those things don't get the heart pumping like seeing someone violated.
John Bigelow was the head of the Oceti Sakowin media team. In that role, he was responsible for press and social media affairs. A huge responsibility in the turmoil of the situation. I met John in a room at the Prairie Knights Casino Hotel to learn about his point of view on the escalation between the water protectors and the militarized police forces.
The law enforcement forces we were up against, I don't think fully understood how to deal with the peaceful and prayerful people. They were confused. They showed up in full militarized gear. They responded in, we think, extreme ways.
You know, I personally got attacked by dogs. I was pepper sprayed. You know, people used tear gas and pepper spray on us. And we've had this military force coming at us constantly.
And we were each arrested at that point and taken and lined up on the side of the road with our hands behind our back, facing the sacred burial grounds. And that's when they brought the bulldozers down. Dug up the burial grounds right in front of us.
So this movement is not founded out of hate for the police officers or for the workers themselves, but out of love for the land and for all of us as human beings.
We don't consider ourselves protesters, we consider ourselves protectors, because we try to conduct ourselves in that prayerful way all the time. And that's not a protest. That is an expression, again, of being a human being.
You know, I've had cops point their guns at us and threaten us, but I just kept praying, kept singing, got disorientated. Our grandmother got arrested, you know, and all they were doing was just standing there praying. But in all of that, just keep praying. Even when they were arrested, sitting there in handcuffs, they kept singing the songs in prayer.
In my search for the heart of Oceti Sakowin, I was directed towards the horn at the center of the camp. The horn was a half circle of 7 teepees where the headsmen of the 7 fires of the Great Sioux Nation resided. I met Manape, one of the headsmen of the Mwakaton band. He was specialized in treaty rights and old ways of government of the Great Sioux Nation.
So basically, this is ground zero for truly developing another nation. Okay, and it's just the humble beginnings. And some people are falling in line with it. Some people are resistant to it. They don't, even though they might be Indian, they're resistant, and that's just the depths of the colonized mind. Hao matakiapi, kichita oksidai machiapi. My name is Soldier Boy. I'm from Nebraska, and I am Dakota, Nakota, Ho-Chunk in Scottish. And I am the headsman of the Mitiwakaton Isanti band of the Oceti Sakowin, the Horn as they call it. And our country goes from Wisconsin all the way to Wyoming and Montana, from the Platte River in Nebraska up to the Heart River just north of here. So you are in treaty country, you are in treaty land, and not just treaty land, but you're in Sioux country.
And the relationship that we have with the United States government is supposed to be government to government. So any type of decisions that would directly affect us, we should be approached as if they were approaching a foreign country.
In 1851, the Fort Laramie Treaty was signed between the US government and many native tribes. The tribes were forced to send leaders to represent them and touch pen, as they called it. This was a way of signing documents invented by the government. Even though the traditional leadership was based on consensus and not on one single leader, everybody in the tribe needed to agree in order to make decisions. The center of the Great Sioux Nations were the Black Hills, and the Treaty of 1851 established a sort of balance between the Sioux and the US. In the following years, white settlers kept breaking the treaties, which reached its highest point when gold was found in the Black Hills. The US government decided to create a new treaty, the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty. This treaty was never agreed on by the majority of the Sioux, but it broke the Great Sioux Nation by force and took the sacred Black Hills away from the tribe. Between 1868 and 1889, a series of allotment acts divided the land further and further, allotting to individuals and families. Finally, nearly 1 million acres of Western Reservation lands were opened for white man's settlement. The Great Sioux Nation was divided up into 6 reservations: Cheyenne River, Pine Ridge, Lower Brule, Yankton, Rosebud, and Standing Rock. Reservations that know a great deal of poverty and unemployment, caused by the way they are constricted by the US government. The US government keeps the Sioux as prisoners of war in the most arid and barren remains of what was once their land.
I don't like the name Sioux like any other Sioux, but that's the name that our forefathers, when they touched the pen, that's the name that's on the treaty. It says they sat with headsmen of bands of the Sioux Nation of Indians in Sioux country. So this is the start of it. You're in the circle of the start of it, and that fire out there. There's a prayer that was made for that, and we're battling this black snake, but at the same time, we're breathing life back into our old government.
How can anyone trust the United States government? How can anybody have faith in democracy when they don't even keep their own treaties with people that live within their borders?
Overlooking Sitting Bull's camp. Sitting Bull Tatanka Iotaka is a very well-known Lakota medicine man, a Hunkpapa Lakota medicine man, who was at the Battle of Little Bighorn and for a very long time defied the United States government until 126 years ago today, he was killed by Indian police. And today, we have a number of people who every year gather on this day to begin a journey down to Wounded Knee, South Dakota. And over the next 2 weeks, they will ride through the deep snow and freezing cold temperatures to make it to Wounded Knee. The entire journey is a prayer. The entire journey is a ceremony to remember our ancestors, to remember what they went through. And so they will start that journey today. In 2 weeks, they will end up at Wounded Knee, South Dakota on December 29th, which is the 126th anniversary of the day of the Wounded Knee massacre. Too is that when Sitting Bull's people left here and they started traveling down, everyone heard the news of Sitting Bull's death and they started joining with the people until, over 300 of them ended up at Wounded Knee.
December 29, 1890. The great Sioux leader Sitting Bull was just killed by the reservation police, and his people scattered all over the reservation. A group of them joined the camp of Chief Bigfoot. Not much later, the 7th U.S. Cavalry surrounded the men, women and children in the camp. The members of the cavalry were seeking to revenge the loss of their colonel, George Custer, in the Battle of Little Bighorn shortly before. They issued a surrender, and Chief Bigfoot answered with a white flag, and his people gave up their weapons. The military started to raid the camp, searching each teepee for weapons, teepee by teepee. Guns, spares, even kitchen tools were confiscated. And one deaf man did not understand what was going on and refused to give up his weapon. A struggle with soldiers followed and the gun fired. The 7th Cavalry opened fire and killed over 150 men, women, children and elders, using heavy Hotchkiss guns. People fled and were chased only to be murdered. And then the weather took over. It started to snow and the bodies of the dead were frozen in strange postures. A famous picture is the one of Chief Bigfoot himself lying in the snow with his hands in the air. Wounded Knee was the last big massacre of the Native Americans, but definitely not the first. Over the centuries, the first people of North America were decimated. The US government wanted to eliminate them, and when that did not work, tried to integrate them. Tens of thousands of Native American children were forced into special schools where they learned the way of the white man was superior to their own so-called barbaric lifestyle. They were kept from their parents for years. Many of them died of homesickness or were sexually abused by their white caretakers. For over 500 years, Western colonialists have tried to extinguish the first inhabitants of the US. Since its founding in 1776, the US government made itself guilty of genocide. Their attempt to destroy the native people, their languages, their culture are still going on today. The Dakota Access Pipeline project that's being constructed through the 1851 Treaty Land is just a new part of this ongoing, deliberate destruction of the first people.
Let me tell you just a little something about the American Indian in our land. We have provided millions of acres of land for what are called the preservations, or the reservations, I should say. They, from the beginning, announced that they wanted to maintain their way of life as they had always lived there in the desert and the plains and so forth. And we set up these reservations so they could, and have a Bureau of Indian Affairs to help take care of them. At the same time, we provide education for them, schools on the reservations, and they are free also to leave the reservations and be American citizens among the rest of us, and many do. Some still prefer, however, that early way of life. And we've done everything we can to meet their demands as to how they want to live. Maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we should not have humored them in that wanting to stay in that kind of primitive lifestyle. Maybe we should have said, no, come join us, be citizens, along with the rest of us. As I say, many have been very successful.
Louis Grassrope is one of the headsmen of the Kui-Chasha band. He received me near the horn and shared his insights and wisdom about the way of his people.
Home Matakiapi. Wichakbi Kisapa Imachiapi. I come from the Kuichasha Oshpaye. I'm one of the headsmen of my Tioshpe, which is the Peji Wakanta Oshpe. We come from Lower Bruce, South Dakota. My English name is Louis Grassrope. It's like the medicine's here. We're healing ourselves. We're letting go of all the traumatic history that has happened to us. And we're starting over. It's like we're being reborn. So we're trying to relearn. And we got to go forward in that way.
Dakota Access Pipeline way, spinning with Tony. Water is life.
The United States has had a long and bloody history with Native Americans, and something very symbolic happened at Standing Rock recently when Wes Clark Jr., one of our hosts here at TYT Network, went to Standing Rock to protest DAPL, the pipeline that was being built in North Dakota. Now, not only did he and thousands of veterans stand with the protesters, or water protectors, as I should call them, they did something amazing. They actually apologized to Native Americans for what they've experienced in U.S. history.
For the first time, to have the cavalry arrive to protect Native Americans.
We came, we fought you, we took your land, we signed treaties that we broke, we stole minerals from your sacred hills, we blasted the faces of our presidents onto your sacred mountain, and we took still more land, and then we took your children, and then we tried to take your language, and we tried to eliminate your language that God gave you, and that the Creator gave you. We didn't respect you. We polluted your earth. We've hurt you in so many ways. And we've come to say that we are sorry. We are at your service, and we beg for your forgiveness.
A lot of us came here as lost people, and no one could deny that. As much as most of us sit there and say, I came here, I was okay, but no, you came here lost. We all came here lost. And what I mean by being lost is that we forgot who we are as human beings. We forgot who we are as truly as people.
Because you can't go around filming.
Yeah, we have Iron Eyes give us permission to film.
Okay.
So we're going to the yurt of Allison now to film them and film the horn.
Okay.
So we have permission.
Ocheti Shakoi was the original form of government here. And eventually, as some of our spiritual leaders and some of the people that have been active with this from the very beginning, we were going into ceremonies and talking about how things should transpire here, or how we move forward. The spirits had selected 4 elders to specifically help with things here within the encampment. Since it was called Ocheti Shakoi, the spirits wanted what we call the horn established. So what we have is a circle of initially 7 teepees, and you can see more than 7 here in the circle now. But these 7, we keep that east end open. And how the story kind of goes is back in 1845 was the last documentation of the horn coming together. The reason why it's called the horn is because usually when buffalo are threatened, they put the young ones in the center, then the elderly buffalo, then the women buffalo, and then the males. And wherever that threat is coming from, they'll stand there with their horns down, and their horns will be up like that. We established the horn, which is seven bands of the Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota. Within the Nakota, there's 2 bands. Within the Dakota, there's 4. And within the Lakota, there's 7 sub-bands. So over here we have the Lakotas, the Titoa, and some of their sub-bands. We have Wahpekute, we have Wapetoa, Sisitoa, Ihanktoanai, and then I represent the Midi-Wakatan Santee band.
If this was just the Ocheti Shakowee coming together, then it would have been just about a pipeline. It's been beyond phenomenal of the magnitude that has come here, especially of every ethnicity, every race, every walks of life. So as soon as that all started happening, a lot of us knew that it was the time of the 7th generation. The prophecy that was told by Crazy Horse himself, that after 7 generations, our red nation, yellow nation, white nation, and black nation will all come together, and they will come to this gathering. We believe in the Chinoopa. We believe in that way of life. And we believe in the 7 natural laws. So with those 7 natural laws, we have to walk that way in our lives. We have to try to keep that. Humility, compassion, honor, respect, fortitude, courage, perseverance. And there's some others that you can put in, but you have to have those to keep going forward. This gathering here has touched the minds and hearts of everybody, even politicians. And we need to really rethink that, think of our lives. Because for me, I got children, I got Wakanja, and I know everybody else does. If I don't do nothing now, then who's gonna stand for them?
Think ahead to those coming after you, because you have to leave something in peace, and you have to leave something to give on to the next generation.
So these camps and this movement to fight the Dakota Access Pipeline and fight the oil industry is really a matriarchal movement. This is a movement led by women. Because of that, we have so much more power. We have the power of the grandmothers. And we know that nothing is more powerful than when women come together in prayer.
Our role as a woman is to make sure that we carry that song, and that song of prayer, that song of love.
Faith Spotted Eagle is one of the leaders of the movement. She's chairman of the Yankton Sioux Treaty Council, grandmother, and founder of the Braveheart Society. She became the first Native American to receive a vote for president in the Electoral College of the United States. And sadly, I wasn't able to meet her at Standing Rock. I was fortunate, though, to be able to interview her over the phone.
Hello.
Hello, this is Robert.
Hey, Robert, how are you?
Yes, I'm well, and I'm hoping you are too. So the first thing I was interested in is what is the role of the grandmothers and prayer in this whole movement?
I think that, again, a lot of what you see is a reflection of our culture, and so the whole prayer and peace was ultimately based on respect, that there is indigenous knowledge that is thousands of years old, and one of those is to depend on prayer and ceremony, and to be able to take direction from those prayers when we are not able to discern it ourselves, that we're not, what would you call it, arrogant enough to think that I'm going to sit here and figure everything out myself. So then we go to a place of prayer and figure out what directions will we receive as we prepare these prayers and continue to seek that peace. And so the ceremonies were held that gave direction, and we followed them.
I remember in the heat of the moment in early September, being on the front line when we were getting attacked by dogs, and there were elderly women there praying, getting attacked by dogs, getting sprayed with pepper spray, having, these huge men grab them and hurt them. And an elderly woman looked at me and she said, as I was crying and frantic and traumatized, she looked at me and she said, "Walk in prayer."
So it's the prayer in action that I think is making the difference.
Prayer, a lot of people think that prayer is just basically sitting and talking and communing with the Creator, but it's really more than that. Your whole life is a prayer.
And when we pray, our prayer is when we walk. Our prayer is what is our motive. When I'm talking to you, I'm talking to another person, that's how we talk to our Creator. We have to talk as you are. It's not one single prayer, it's not one single song. It's what are you feeling at that time? Creator, my mind is a little troubled today. Help me to focus. Creator, my friend needs help. They're suffering with cancer. I ask you, Creator, to help them in their time of trouble. It's talking. That is your prayer. That's your breath of life.
I think we've shown the world that another way is possible, where so many didn't have that hope.
And all that can't take place unless we recognize our connection to Mother Earth. All our ceremonies come from her, the relationship that we have with the earth.
Because Mother Earth, she feeds us, she clothes us, and she gives us shelter every day, unconditionally. She just gives, like a mother, giving, here. So how do we honor our mother if we don't have nothing to give back? And the best thing that we can do is to be of harmony with the earth and say, I love you, Mother. Here, the water is your veins, it's your blood. Let me do what I can to make sure you keep going. Because your life is our life. We're one.
Het Sacred Fire leeft, de Sioux Nation leeft, deze wereldwijde beweging leeft, heeft een kloppend hart. En laten we alsjeblieft met elkaar steunen. Deze beweging, deze prachtige mensen, deze prachtige beweging hier, laten we alsjeblieft steunen. Het is zo belangrijk wat hier gebeurt voor de wereld, voor de mensheid, voor Moeder Aarde. Dank jullie wel.
I think I always knew that it would be Indigenous people leading us into the next world, you know. There are a lot of prophecies that say that as the human race, we would eventually come to a fork in the road, right? Where and we could take a path of destruction, or we could take a path of life and goodness. And I am very happy to say that this has started us, I believe, on that path of life. We have taken the fork in the road, and it's because this is an Indigenous-led movement.
Itself, Indigenous people have an inherited stewardship for our planet, and this movement encompasses sustainability in a whole. When you think about sustainability, it's the environment, it's economy, it's social equity, and it's ecology. And this movement is the forefront of fighting for those rights in those specific areas. And that's why we attract so many different people from so many different tribes.
There's some pre-colonial things that we're working on. There are everyday prayer things that we're fighting for. Right now we're in the battle of our lives but it's no different than many other presidents that have come, who have come out to continue to speak with a conqueror voice to our Native people. But one of the movements that Trump is trying to do is he's going to try to privatize the reservations.
Again, Donald Trump wants to privatize reservations, basically abolishing reservations and opening up all the goods and resources that belong to us. He wants to have access to that. And so we foresee a big battle coming ahead. If he's talking like that, that's a direct threat to the remains of what we have.
This president is taking direction from corporate America, from the Koch brothers, and it's something that this country has to start to realize, and it falls in line with all the other executive orders that he's given. And so there's going to be a trend here, and we've seen it in the first 2 weeks. It started, and I don't think any leader of a nation should make decisions without hearing all perspectives.
When we made a treaty with the United States government, they got to stand there on their Bible, put their right hand. We will honor this treaty. For us, in our way of life, we made it through the Chunupa. So when we make things through a Chunupa, that is our commitment between us and Tecántla, and that's our covenant. So we could never sit there and overdo that.
The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers said Tuesday it'll greenlight the final phase of construction for the Dakota Access Pipeline, prompting Indigenous-led water protectors to call for a last stand against the $3.8 billion project. In a letter to Congress, Acting Army Secretary Robert Speer said the Corps will cancel an environmental impact study of the Dakota Access Pipeline and will grant an easement today, allowing Energy Transfer Partners to drill under Lake Wahe on the Missouri River. The Army Corps also said it would suspend a customary 14-day waiting period following its order, meaning the company could immediately begin boring a tunnel for the final 1.5 miles of pipe. In response, the Standing Rock Sioux tribe promised a legal fight. Tribal Chair Dave Archambault said in a statement, quote, "As Native peoples, we've been knocked down again, but we'll get up. We will rise above the greed and corruption that has plagued our people since first contact. We'll call on the Native nations of the United States to stand together, unite, and fight back."
Finally, after almost a year of peaceful protest, the Oceti-Sakowin camp was raided and fell. February 22, 2017. 100 armored vehicles, Humvees and trucks, accompanied by 200 heavy militarized police officers, entered the camp, where about 100 unarmed water protectors held their ground. They raided the camp, searching it teepee by teepee, just like their forefathers did at Wounded Knee. Nothing has changed in the suppression of the First Nations. The difference between now and then is the media attention, the use of drone footage and Facebook Live. By constantly broadcasting the violence to witnesses all over the world, the Sioux and their helpers protected themselves from worse this time.
The sacred fire is put out. Oh, what do we do now? The sacred fire, we need to reignite it. But what people tended to forget was when that fire was lit here, it was lit in their heart. It was lit in their soul. So even though they're still here and they left and they walked somewhere else and they're hurt because that fire went out, that fire never went out. It's within them. They took what they needed from here. And that fire is still going. Now it's up to them to sit there and bring that fire out and keep it going.
We said that we're putting the fire to sleep. We're not extinguishing the fire. We're putting the fire to sleep, and what we're asking is for all people to put this fire in your heart, to take it from the movement at Standing Rock to all the places on earth that need help with the water and the land. And by taking this fire out to all of these other campfires, then indeed we make the movement stronger.
As Indigenous peoples, we take a stand to defend our peoples, to protect our rights, to stand in defense of Mother Earth. And it's our women, our men, and our future generations who will hold tight to the fire of resistance for the next 7 generations.
There was one man I did not meet, regrettably. Chief Arvel Looking Horse was in Canada when we were filming at the camps. He's the spiritual leader of the Great Sioux Nation, the 19th generation keeper of the sacred white buffalo calf pie. His wisdom could not be missed in this film.
We made a statement saying that we are at the crossroads. Either be faced with a lot of chaos, disasters, tears from our relatives' eyes, different viruses and sickness, or we can unite spiritually in this global community. Then we can create the energy shift to heal together, because we as nations upon Mother Earth, we need to respect each other. That's what it's going to take to heal Mother Earth. And that this is in our time right now.
There's one thing I know for sure. My 2 boys will not grow up as ignorant about the true history of the United States as I did. 500 years of suppression, of massacres, of genocide, and they're getting away with it. The war between the Great Sioux Nation and the US has never ceased to exist. The stakes haven't changed at all in all those centuries. It's all about power, it's all about profit. The unimaginable suffering of people who have always lived by values such as wisdom, generosity and compassion is far beyond my understanding. With all of my heart, I hope they will succeed in reclaiming their treaty land and in bringing back their pre-colonial ways of government, culture and spirituality. They are the ones who are living so close to Mother Earth, to spirits, to God and to nature. We are the ones destroying it all. The revolution is indigenized, not just the Great Sioux Nation and other First Nations in the US, but indigenous people all around the world are showing us the way to a new collective consciousness. Not one of power, fear and destruction, but one of love, compassion and unity.
Always give what you can, even if your allies draw lines in the sand and dig. Always dig a little deeper. Sometimes it's hard to be my brother's keeper. Love, so you let love in. Baby, I am home in the wake of your skin, and it's crazy how we wear a ceremony. Always be open to your path and your journey. Yes, she cradles my loneliness, a home at a forest nest. Universal test, feel the weight of my love. Put your hand on my chest and rest in the cradle of my arms. The battle that we face is a place where our scars come from. And to pick up the gun, my love, we are destined to teach these ones to be brave and never run away. Courage is birthed from the womb on the first light of day. Yeah, the day you were born, you came out perfect, never meant to be torn in silence. Never been so loud in the violence, never been so proud of our people. When we're fighting for a change, not afraid to lose it all. Despite all the rage, we are animals and we cannot be caged. Provoke us to fight, so we burn a little sage and write poetry. Wiser than the enemy will ever be. The minority and authority. Are you here to protect or arrest me? I can't tolerate the hate and I'm losing sleep. Can't breathe cause they're choking out a war in me. Immorality, yeah. Love letters to God. I wonder if she reads them or if they get lost in the stars.
Dank je voor het kijken naar More Than a Pipeline. Ik hoop dat je ervan genoten hebt en ik hoop dat de film je geraakt heeft. Wij hebben deze film vanuit ons hart gemaakt. En het is een volledige non-profit productie. We verdienen er niets aan. Maar we hebben wel basiskosten. Die hebben we zo laag mogelijk gehouden. €28.000 voor een documentaire is niet veel geld. Een half jaar werk. We hebben het heel scherp gehouden. Heel veel mensen hebben ons geholpen. Sommigen tegen hele lage tarieven, anderen voor niets. Maar nog steeds zitten we met een gat in de begroting. En we hopen dat je ons wil helpen om tenminste uit de kosten te komen en te doneren op onze website morethanApipeline.com. En ik zou het ongelooflijk waarderen als je dat wilt doen. Alles wat er te veel binnenkomt, dus wat de productiekosten overstijgt, gaat terug naar de Great Sioux Nation, naar de Water Protectors en al hun helpers. We staan hier op het Oceti-Sakowin gebied. Dit is waar het kamp was in North Dakota, samen met Mana Lamer, een van de hoofdrolspelers in de film. En kijk maar rond, het is hier het is heel surrealistisch om hier te staan. Dank voor het kijken naar More Than a Pipeline en dank voor je donatie.